Hey, my stuff got delivered to my parents' house. What's going on? Did you get the packages? I want you to leave, so I sent all your things there. Why are you saying this all of a sudden? I have a girlfriend. I've decided to leave you and marry her. What? Isn't that cheating? She's younger than you and doesn't nag. She's exactly my type. She's a complete upgrade from you. You don't stand a chance. Do you understand that what you're doing is cheating? Also, I'm about to have a baby any day now. I get it. You want me to take responsibility, right? I'll pay for the affair and child support. Is $220,000 or $40,000 enough for the affair and $1,000 a month for child support? While I was at my parents' house to give birth, my husband sent my stuff there. He didn't even try to hide his affair. For my high-income, elite husband, paying for the affair and child support isn't a big deal as long as he can marry his girlfriend. I'll give you more details later. I'll keep the house and live there with her. Don't come back. I believe there must be a God. Surely, God would punish my husband. Fine, I don't need you. Let's get divorced quickly. Yeah, I got it. I'll contact you soon. Thank you, I appreciate it. I don't want any more trouble. Right, I'm glad we can get divorced without any fuss. My husband misunderstood my final words of gratitude. I believe he will face difficulties soon. The house he said he'd take to live with his girlfriend. Actually, I'm Anna. I'm 29, and I work at a company. I'm shy and not exceptionally skilled at my job. Because of that, I thought of myself as a background character in society. But as I approached 30, my life took a dramatic turn. There aren't many good places near our office. There are good places, but they're either too small or too far from the station. It's hard to find one that fits our needs. I'm searching for a house with Ken, who will soon be my husband. We pore over materials from real estate agents and online listings, struggling to find the right place. Even though it's a hassle, I secretly enjoy looking for a house while snuggled up next to Ken. I always try hard to look seriously worried instead of letting my happiness show on my face. I'm at the peak of happiness. I'll give you more details later. I'll keep the house and live there with her. Don't come back. I believe there must be a God. Surely, God would punish my husband. Fine, I don't need you. Let's get divorced quickly. Yeah, I got it. I'll contact you soon. Thank you, I appreciate it. I don't want any more trouble. Right? I'm glad we can get divorced without any fuss. My husband misunderstood my final words of gratitude. I believe he will face difficulties soon. The house he said he'd take to live with his girlfriend. Actually, I'm Anna, 29 years old, and I work at a company. I'm shy and not particularly skilled at my job, so I often felt like a background character in society. But as I approached 30, my life took a dramatic turn. There aren't many good places near our office. The good ones are either too small or too far from the station. It's hard to find one that fits our needs. I'm searching for a house with Ken, who will soon be my husband. We pore over materials from real estate agents and online listings, struggling to find the right place. Even though it's a hassle, I secretly enjoy looking for a house while snuggled up next to Ken. I try hard to look seriously worried instead of letting my happiness show on my face. I'm at the peak of happiness. But when I said my life took a dramatic turn, I wasn't just talking about getting married. Marrying Ken, who works at a prestigious international company, added a big twist to my life. We live in different worlds, but we met through mutual friends, and surprisingly, Ken approached me first. I still can't believe it, so I often ask him, "Hey, what did you see in someone like me again?" Your modesty. Nowadays, a lot of women are strong and assertive, but I'm not into that. Ken always looks obviously annoyed when I ask the same thing repeatedly, but I love that he always gives me the same answer, even if he looks annoyed. When Ken calls me modest, he's talking about my shy nature. He initially approached me simply because he liked my looks. When I first heard that, I thought it was a bit rude, but over time he grew to appreciate my modesty. Given how happy I am now, I can forgive his rude comments. In contrast, what drew me to Ken was his decisive and confident nature. Keep gathering info on properties, and did you tell the wedding planner about the changes to the menu? I'm planning to call about the menu tomorrow. What? You haven't told them yet? Handle the important stuff promptly. Yeah, I'll be careful. Ken sighed and began tidying up the property materials. He often delegates various tasks to me, and perhaps because of his elite status, he sometimes talks down to me. We're not married yet, but is this what they call a dominant husband? Some people might find it hard to believe. but for a shy person like me, it's actually easier when someone directs me on what to do. That's why I believe Ken and I are a good match. As the wedding day quickly approaches, we still haven't found a place to live. Since we didn't live together before getting married, we really wanted to start living together right after the wedding. But since that seems difficult, we made a decision. We thought we'd rent until we had kids, but maybe we should just buy that house. Yeah, that seems the most realistic. Ken picked up one of the property brochures and placed it on the table. This house is nearly 40 years old, surrounded by newer houses. It has been unsold for some time. It's well maintained for its age, but it needs some work before it's comfortable to live in. All right, we'll buy this house and renovate it right. Considering the renovation time, it won't be ready by the wedding, but it meets all our needs in terms of location and size. But are we okay to buy a house so suddenly? We're fine. Leave it to me. Ken looked confident. Most wives would be anxious if their husbands suddenly wanted to buy a house impulsively, but Ken's income is high and I also work, so it's not unreasonable. So we decided to buy a house right after getting married. Following my marriage, we even bought a house, and the elements of happiness were piling up at a faster and faster pace as if they were crushing my body. However, buying this house would later lead to an unexpected situation. After deciding to buy the house, we also had to find a contractor for the renovation. Of course, finding a contractor was my job. Since we'd be living there for a long time, I carefully searched for a contractor. However, with the wedding so close, Ken seemed to be getting impatient. Hey, did you find a contractor? Give me a little more time. I'm still looking. You're always so slow, but it's important. If I leave it to you, we'd never be able to live in the house. I'll handle finding a contractor. All right, I'm sorry. As usual, while discussing our wedding and future life in Ken's room, he got angry with me. I felt bad for causing trouble by not finding a contractor and couldn't say anything in return. Once Ken started looking, he arranged everything within a few days, and the renovation began the following week. He's really efficient, as expected from someone of his caliber. With his speed, it's no wonder he finds me slow. While the house was being renovated, we had our wedding without any issues. Since the house wasn't ready, I moved into Ken's place. I was a little disappointed that we couldn't start our newlywed life in our new home, but then a different kind of happiness came our way. Ken, I think I might be pregnant. Really? Ken was overjoyed, bouncing around like a kid. We thought we wouldn't rush into having kids, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. I felt the same way. We figured we'd have kids eventually and were just going with the flow, so discovering I was pregnant right after the wedding was a surprise. I'm glad we decided to buy the house. 2 months after the wedding, the renovation was finally complete and we could move in together. It was so run down, but now it looks amazing, right? With a baby on the way, it was a good purchase. I hurried around our still sparsely furnished home, excited about starting our married life for real. But 3 months after moving into our house, Ken and I ended up living apart. Hey, did you check on that creaky floor in the hallway? No, not yet. I'll call a contractor tomorrow. But aren't you 8 months pregnant now? Use your vacation days and go to your parents' house early. What? I told you I'm planning to take maternity leave 6 weeks before. It'll be tough to move around in another month. Go now while you can. Okay, got it. When Ken suggested I go back to my parents' house early, it made me slow down, lingering over my dinner. We had already discussed and decided on having the baby at my parents' house, and the handover of my work for maternity leave was progressing smoothly, so taking leave a bit early wasn't a problem. But I wanted to spend as much time as possible with Ken at home. I thought Ken felt the same, so it was a bit of a shock when he told me to leave early. Still, I decided to follow his advice. The next week, I went back to my parents' house to prepare for the birth. Well, take care of the house. Yeah, don't worry about it. By the way, about the kitchen wall. Don't worry. I told you I lived alone for a long time. I can handle the housework. No, I mean the window frame too. All right, I'll take care of everything. Ken seemed to think I was being too persistent, so he gently pushed me out the front door. As I turned back, Ken was waving with a smile. I trusted that Ken would handle things well and decided to leave the house in his care. Mom, Dad, I'm home. Welcome back. It must have been tough, right? Not really. I'm okay. When I arrived, Mom greeted me at the entrance. Feeling a bit awkward about her concern, I averted my gaze. I didn't want to admit that I had spent $200 on a taxi from the house to here. Oh, you're back. Was it tough? No, not really. In the living room, Dad was there. I averted my gaze again at his words. Needless to say, my parents' house is comfortable. At home, Ken tends to be a bit domineering, and I did most of the housework, but here I just help out a bit. My parents are still in their late 50s, so they both work. Mom works part-time and comes home in the early afternoon, so I'm alone in the morning. I spend that time slowly cleaning and doing laundry for exercise. In the afternoon, Mom takes care of the house, so I have nothing to do. Having nothing to do feels oddly unsettling, so I end up following Mom around looking for ways to help. I want to call Ken and catch up on things, but ever since I came back home, he hasn't contacted me much or visited. Has Ken called you back yet? No, he hasn't returned any of my calls. I really need to talk to him. I wonder if something's wrong. He hasn't visited in a month. I'm worried. He's probably just enjoying his freedom and focusing on work since I'm not there. Mom peeled an apple, looking worried. I gratefully ate the apple she gave me. Mom is probably imagining negative things like Ken being sick or having an affair. But Ken is a capable professional, and we're about to have a baby, so I thought there was no way he could be sick or cheating. I soon realized how naive that thought was. One afternoon, while Mom and I were watching TV, the doorbell rang. Who is it? Looks like a delivery. It wasn't unusual to get a package, but Mom looked confused as she went to the door. I waited in the living room. I could faintly hear Mom talking to a delivery man but couldn't make out the words. After a while, Mom came back, looking worried and flustered. Hey, your stuff from your house is here. What's going on? What? What do you mean? I didn't understand what she was saying and could only repeat her question back to her. I slowly stood up to check the situation and headed toward the packages that had arrived. What's this? What's going on? When I stepped outside, there was a moving truck loaded with boxes. I opened one of the boxes and found my clothes inside. I opened another box, and it also contained my clothes. It looked like all the boxes were filled with my belongings from our house. I didn't understand the situation, but since the packages had arrived, I had no choice but to accept them. We pushed all the boxes into an empty room at my parents' house. The room was completely filled with boxes. After seeing the movers off, I called Ken in front of the delivered packages. I didn't expect him to answer, as he usually didn't, but this time he picked up right away. Hey, my stuff was delivered to my parents' house. What's going on? Did the packages arrive? I decided I want you out of the house, so I sent all your stuff there. What? Why are you saying this all of a sudden? Well, I have a girlfriend. I decided to leave you and marry her. What? He called her his girlfriend, but that meant he was cheating, openly declaring it to me, his wife. I couldn't comprehend what he was saying, and I started feeling dizzy. Isn't that cheating? Well, yeah, I guess. We started dating before the wedding. Guys can get cold feet too, you know. She was kind to me when I was struggling, and we started seeing each other. I couldn't call off the wedding, so I married you, but I couldn't give her up. When I lived with her in her house this past month, I realized she's better than you, so I decided to divorce you. Living with her? You mean she's been staying in our house for the past month? Calling her a mistress is disrespectful. She's my fiancée now. She's a mistress because I'm still here. My vision, which had been spinning, suddenly cleared, and I found myself yelling at Ken. My mom, who was listening to the call, looked extremely worried when she heard the word cheating. Not wanting to upset her any further, I forced myself to calm down. You told me to go back to my parents' house early so you could live with her, right? That's right. She's younger than you, not as slow, and exactly my type. She's a complete upgrade from you. You don't stand a chance. Do you understand that what you're doing is cheating? And I'm about to have a baby any day now. I get it. You want me to take responsibility, right? I'll pay for the affair and child support. Is $20,000 or $40,000 for the affair and $1,000 a month for child support enough? Even over the phone, I could imagine the smug look on Ken's face. Ken is an elite and high-income earner. Paying for the affair and child support probably didn't seem like much to him if it meant he could marry his girlfriend. In contrast, I'm a nobody. There's no way I could stop Ken from divorcing me for her, so I had no choice but to accept the divorce. As much as I wanted to refuse the alimony and child support out of pride, as a regular employee, I needed the money. It was a bitter pill to swallow. I gripped my phone tightly out of frustration and shame. That's the deal. The divorce is final, and I'll give you more details later. I'm keeping the house and living there with her, so don't come back. I thought to myself that there must be a God, and surely God would punish Ken. Fine, I don't want anything to do with you. Let's get divorced quickly. Yeah, I got it. I'll contact you soon. Thanks, that helps. I don't want any more trouble. Right, I'm glad we can get divorced without any fuss. After hanging up, Mom looked at me with concern. I smiled to reassure her. Ken misunderstood my final words of gratitude. I believed that he would face some trouble soon. 3 months later, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl named Maya and was still at my parents' house. She was so adorable that I couldn't bear to be apart from her, even though I needed to start looking for a place before my maternity leave ended. The divorce was finalized, and Ken agreed to pay for the affair and child support. I had no lingering feelings for my ex-husband. In fact, I felt refreshed after the divorce. Since we already settled everything, I thought I'd never have to deal with him again. But suddenly, he called me. He must have finally realized the situation. Hey, what's going on? What do you mean? The house. You mentioned something about the floors and walls, didn't you? Did you know about this? Yes, I knew. You hired a shady contractor for the renovation. Why didn't you tell me? I tried to, but you never returned my calls because you were too busy having fun with your girlfriend. Besides, I told you about the creaky floors before I left for my parents' house and asked you to check it out, but you were too focused on getting me out of the house quickly to listen seriously. Ken thought I was too slow in finding a contractor, so he took over the task. When he started looking, he quickly found someone and began the renovations. I was impressed with how efficient he was, but it turns out he chose the contractor based solely on price without checking reviews or reputation. So he ended up hiring a shady contractor. After living in the house for just 3 months, I noticed the floors creaking, cracks in the kitchen wall, and screws missing from the window frames. After moving back to my parents' house, I looked into the contractor and found out they were scammers. I tried to contact Ken to tell him, but he never returned my calls, and we ended up getting divorced before I could tell him. Because of you, the response was delayed, and now I'm having disputes with the contractor. They're blaming us, saying we lived in the house wrong for 6 months, causing the damage. The creaky floors, growing wall cracks, and poorly closing doors have all gotten worse. The house is a mess. That sounds like a terrible place to live. I've moved into an apartment to get out of the house. If I stayed, they'd keep blaming us for the damage. I'm talking to a lawyer, but for some reason, it looks bad for us. Still, I'm going to sue them. So your house is falling apart, and you're going to court. That sounds tough, but it's not my problem anymore. Is that why you called? That's right. If you had told me about the shady contractor sooner, this might not have happened. So what? I mean, I'll keep paying $500 a month in child support, but can we lower the monthly payments for the $20,000 alimony? What? I was shocked that my elite, prideful ex-husband was suddenly asking me for a favor about money. We moved, right? So now I've got the land, house renovation loans, and apartment rent. I'm going to sue the contractor, but I don't know how that'll go, and there are lawyer fees. I might even have to pay for the house repairs myself. You said your wife is better at her job than I am. Doesn't she make a decent income? Actually, she was my colleague at work. I told everyone at the company that we got married after I divorced you, but apparently, there were rumors about us before that. So now people at work are giving us the cold shoulder. Yeah, she couldn't take it and changed jobs, which cut her salary drastically. I can't afford to switch jobs too, so I stayed. But money is tight. Ken had hired the shady contractor himself and was now having a huge dispute. His affair had damaged his standing at work. It was a classic case of self-inflicted trouble. Despite his high income, he was just over 30, and all these expenses were tough to manage. But it was his own fault, and it had nothing to do with me. It sounds tough, but you need to keep your promise. Wait a minute. I hung up on Ken. His voice just before the call ended sounded pitiful, not at all like the elite man he once was. Feeling a bit down after hearing his voice, I spent some time watching my daughter sleep. In the end, Ken lost the case about the defective house. The shady contractor managed to avoid any consequences, likely due to their knowledge of loopholes and deceit. It seems that even the elite, as expected, were not able to meet the vices of the corrupt contractor. Ken wanted to repair the house, but there were too many hidden issues, and the costs were too high. Naturally, he didn't want to live in a house with so many problems. He ended up selling the house. Since it was full of defects, the building had no value, so he sold just the land after demolishing the house. The land sold, but the loan remained, leaving my ex-husband with debt. With the house issue resolved, he decided to change jobs. He figured the debt was manageable even with a lower income, so he left his uncomfortable workplace. However, his fall from grace didn't stop there. His new wife, who had to deal with the huge house trouble right after they got married, and the fallout of their affair being exposed at work, blamed him for everything. Their relationship deteriorated, and she eventually left him. Now my ex-husband lives alone in an apartment with a lower income from his new job and monthly payments for his debt, alimony, and child support. His once luxurious life as an elite is now a life of frugality. He foolishly pursued an affair, losing his money, house, and family in the process. Love is indeed blind. I plan to start looking for an apartment for my daughter and me soon. When I talked to my company about my child, they agreed to let me work shorter hours, but I don't need to change jobs. I'm grateful for that. Returning to work will be challenging, so I intend to fully enjoy the precious time with my adorable daughter while I can.